Now that we've talked about that crucial element of entrepreneurship, namely the idea, we're going to take a step back and look at some current trends in the business world. The reason we're doing that now is that you need to start tweaking your idea right away, and reflecting on current trends might help you do that. So we're going to set aside the idea for now and talk about current trends. There are a lot of new trends out there, and the entrepreneur keeps their eye on these trends and realizes the opportunities in them and finds ways to exploit them. New trends, technologies, and norms are born every day, and the successful entrepreneur needs to keep their finger on the pulse. Stay alert, stay curious. Keep your eye on the news media, even the traditional media such as television and newspapers, but of course also newer platforms such as social media and blogs. I'm going to tell you about a few current emerging trends, but you need to bear in mind that there are many, many more, and it is in fact up to you to keep on top of them. The first trend I'm going to talk about is simpler business models. Think about a traditional bookstore that needs to sit somewhere in a building by a road where customers might come. This traditional bookstore is going to have to pay rent, possibly property taxes, and to serve a large number of customers, it's going to have to stock a broad range of books. Any books that don't sell are only going to create costs, no revenues. Now contrast this with an online bookstore such as Amazon. Amazon doesn't need any buildings, it doesn't need any shop assistants. When a customer orders a book, Amazon simply ships it from a fulfillment center directly to the customer. Or, if the customer ordered a niche book, Amazon might just print one copy of that book just for that customer. And don't forget customers who order their books electronically to read on e-readers. In that case, Amazon doesn't need to ship or handle anything. It simply sends the electronic content to the customer. In its operation, Amazon collects a huge amount of data about customers. What they search for, what they buy, what they look at. And Amazon can use this information to make suggestions to customers about what to buy next. But also, these data can be used to spot new industry trends. And indeed, later on in the course, we are going to talk specifically about this phenomenon of big data. As an aside, it's fun to mention that Amazon has actually opened a physical shop in Seattle. Things certainly do come around, don't they? The possibility of simpler business models, particularly those that do not require huge upfront investments, is a very interesting opportunity for new entrepreneurs. Now think about it. How could you exploit this trend of simpler business models? The second trend I'm going to talk about is outsourcing. Outsourcing basically means shifting work to where it can be done faster, cheaper, or better. When you think about outsourcing, you might think about call centers. And indeed, for a company, say in the US, it might make perfect economic sense to outsource their call center activities, for example, to India, where salaries are lower but quality is equal. Another form of outsourcing that you may not think about is getting hard-to-find experts to conduct a specified piece of work for you. And then there's a third form of outsourcing, which involves outsourcing work that would otherwise be done by humans to machines. With current advances in artificial intelligence and robotics, this is becoming increasingly feasible. And it might be particularly valuable where you have dangerous situations where there's a real risk to humans doing the work. So, as an entrepreneur, you could take advantage of outsourcing to reduce costs, to obtain crucial expert knowledge, or to get machines to do what humans would otherwise do. How could you exploit the trend of outsourcing? Related to both simpler business models and outsourcing is the third trend I'm going to talk about, which is sometimes referred to as the sharing economy. Now, the term sharing economy is a bit of a misnomer because it's not really about sharing. There is definitely money changing hands. But we won't let that sidetrack us, since this is the term commonly used. Businesses operating in the sharing economy, they exploit resources and infrastructure that are there anyway instead of building new ones. For example, Airbnb exploits rooms and apartments that are empty anyway, instead of building hotels or apartment buildings. Similarly, Uber exploits cars and drivers that are available anyway, instead of buying fleets of cars or hiring a bunch of drivers. Yes, I realize there's quite a bit of controversy around both Airbnb and Uber. And some of that controversy is actually well-founded, particularly around the data they collect about people, about where they go and where they stay. This is another example of big data. However, most of the controversy is actually driven by the hotel chains and the taxi companies who stand to lose business from this unanticipated competitor. How could you exploit the sharing economy trend and become such an unanticipated competitor? The fourth trend is globalization. It's an increasingly smaller world. What does that mean? Well, it means that whatever your expertise is, whatever it is you're doing, you're no longer competing just with the people or the company down the street. You're now competing with people worldwide. And if you think about it, the world population is currently about 7.5 billion people. Even if only a small percentage of those are competing with you, that's still a lot of competition. That's a bit scary. But if you flip it to the bright side, you also realize that whatever it is that you're offering as an entrepreneur may well have a market worldwide, which means that you could potentially reach some of those billions. So how are you going to exploit the trend of globalization? A related trend is the emergence of micro-multinationals. Think about what that means. Micro is something tiny, and a multinational, as we know, is something huge, with corporate offices. Well, the opportunities that were only available to large companies about 10 years ago are now available to small startups. Here's some examples. In the first place, you have access to a vast pool of potential employees and contract workers worldwide instead of being limited to the local talent pool. Secondly, there are now sophisticated software solutions that are sold as services online. For example, who wants to have to invest in a legacy accounting system? You don't have to do that. You buy access to a solution online and pay only for what you use. Related to that is cloud data storage and processing, which could eliminate your need to invest in and operate computer servers. And think about it. With the right design and layout, you can create a website that is indistinguishable from a big firm's website. And finally, you have access to sophisticated logistics, for example through Amazon, or payment processing through PayPal. Do you want to become a micro-multinational? Well, the world is your oyster. The sixth and final trend I'm going to talk about is print on demand. Here's what print on demand means. If you have a product that can be printed in some fashion, print on demand means that you no longer have to manufacture it yourself, and you no longer have to keep it in stock. This is revolutionary. A lot of wannabe entrepreneurs have had to abandon cool ideas for products because they didn't have enough money to invest in expensive manufacturing facilities. Or they weren't able to manufacture enough stock because it was too risky or expensive. Here's how print on demand could work. Let's imagine a young entrepreneur who has taken a bunch of photos of lighthouses. She thinks that there's enough of these and they're good looking enough that taken together they could create a nice coffee table book that people would want to buy. So she goes online and picks a print-on-demand service provider, downloads a piece of software. She lays out her book just the way she likes it, and she might actually order a copy for herself just for fun. But more importantly, she now posts her book on the print-on-demand service provider's e-commerce site, or perhaps on Amazon. When a customer orders the book, it's up to the print-on-demand service provider to print a copy of the book and ship it to the customer. She never has to handle it. Print-on-demand used to be primarily about books, and initially it was only text. But print-on-demand has come a long way, and it's come beyond just printing text and images on paper. There are now print-on-demand service providers out there, such as Threadless, that can print on fabric, for example onto t-shirts. And where it gets really interesting is three-dimensional printing, or 3D printing. Additive manufacturing technologies, which are the technologies on which 3D printing is based, are advancing at a rapid pace. Whereas current 3D printers might seem slow and expensive, they will very soon become fast and affordable. As an entrepreneur, you could invest in your own 3D printer and print your products for customers on demand. It might actually be smarter for you, however, to take advantage of one of the many growing number of 3D printing service providers. Let them deal with investing in the latest and greatest equipment and keeping up with the new technology. We've talked about several interesting trends. As an entrepreneur, you need to stay ever on the alert for new and emerging trends, because in one of these trends might lie your big opportunity. Guy Kawasaki suggests a very useful thought exercise when faced with new trends. Ask yourself, therefore, what? For example, everyone will have a smartphone with a camera and internet access. Therefore, what? They'll be able to take pictures and share them. Therefore, what? We should create an app that lets people upload their photos, rate the photos of others, and post comments. And voila, there's Instagram.